President Ram Nath Kovind to give away National Sports Awards 2021 at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Major Dhyan Chand Khel Ratna Award will be given to 12 sportspersons. 35 will receive Arjun Award. Union Home Minister Amit Shah to address a rally in Azamgarh and Basti. Home Minister will also inaugurate Sansad Khel Mahakumbh at Amar Shahid Satyavan Singh Sports Stadium in Basti. In Tamil Nadu, 17 died in last few days due to rain-related incidents. Met Department forecast thunderstorm with heavy rains. Schools and colleges will remain closed due to rain forecast in Chennai. State Disaster Management Authority had warned against travel to the Nilgiris. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 111 crore landmark. More than 52,99,000 vaccine doses administered on Friday. And COVID-19 has infected more than 25 crore 31 lakh people worldwide. France is at the beginning of fifth wave. Explosion of cases in Germany. Russia deaths near record high. Very good morning, I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Let's start with our top story. President Ram Nath Kovind will give away the National Sports Awards 2021 today at a specially organized function at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Major Dhyan Chand Khel Ratna Award will be given to 12 sportspersons and 35 will receive the Arjun Award. And sportsperson who will be given Khel Ratna are Neeraj Chopra, wrestler Ravi Kumar, boxer Lavlina Borgohan, hockey player Srijesh and Manpreet Singh, para-shooter Avni Lekhra, para-athlete Sumit Antil, para-shuttler Pramod Bhagat, Krishna Nagar, para-shooter Manish Narwal, cricketer Mithali Raj and footballer Sunil Chetri. And 35 sportspersons will be given the Arjun Award, and they include para-paddler Bhavina Patel, para-archer Harvinder Singh, athlete Arpinder Singh, fencer Bhavani Devi, cricketer Shikhar Dhawan, tennis player Ankita Raina, shooter Abhishek Verma and boxer Simranjeet Kaur among others. The President will also present Dronacharya Awards to outstanding coaches in sports and games, Dhyan Chand Award for lifetime achievement in sports and games, and Rashtriya Khel Protsahan Puraskar will also be conferred. Moving on to our next story, Union Home Minister Amit Shah is on a two-day visit to Uttar Pradesh. On the second and last day of the tour today, Amit Shah will visit Azamgarh and Basti districts. He is also scheduled to address a rally after laying the foundation stone of the State University in Azamgarh. And later, he will launch Khel Mahakumbh at Amar Shahid Satyavan Singh Sports Stadium in Basti district, organized by local MP Harish Dwivedi. Amit Shah will also address a public meeting in the courtyard of PG College Basti. And on Friday, Amit Shah paid tributes to the founder of Banaras Hindu University, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, on his death anniversary in Varanasi. The Home Minister also met senior party leaders and also shared tips related to election management. His visit to Uttar Pradesh gains significance in view of upcoming assembly polls in 2022, that is next year, in the state. Also, Information and Broadcasting Minister and senior BJP leader Mr. Anurag Singh Thakur said that the party has set a target of winning more than 300 seats in the state.
हर चुनाव का अपना महत्व होता है, कोई किसी का सेमीफाइनल नहीं होता। राज्य के चुनाव भी महत्वपूर्ण है। 24 का चुनाव को भी बहुत देर है। 2022 में हम 300 पार करके सत्ता में आएंगे, भाजपा की सरकार बनाएंगे।
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with PMO officials on the occasion of Diwali Milan organized at PM's residence at Lok Kalyan Marg on Friday. Prime Minister discussed the country's battle against the pandemic. He underlined how the country has displayed unity and brotherhood in fighting the common faceless enemy. He also talked about the positive changes that have come about in society and governance as a result of the pandemic, adding that these changes have made societies more resilient. Prime Minister highlighted how difficult times often lead to realization of inherent potential among people, processes and institutions. He exhorted PMO officials to draw inspiration from this spirit, highlighting the significance of this decade towards laying a strong foundation for the nation for 2047 and beyond. Prime Minister said that all of us in PMO must work together to our fullest potential and help the nation attain greater heights. 17 people have died in Tamil Nadu in the last few days due to rain-related incidents. The State Disaster Management Authority had warned against travel to the Nilgiris in view of the Met Department's forecast of thunderstorm with heavy rains for 5 days beginning November 12th in the district. Over 3 lakh persons living on the banks of the Kosatliyar River and Vellore Anicut had been alerted ahead of excess water discharge in their areas, saving lives and property. Meanwhile, the Chennai District Collector declared a holiday for schools and colleges today. Officials said rainwater stagnated on many school campuses. Schools would be reopened only after checking the safety aspects. The educational institutions in the city have remained closed for nearly 2 weeks due to festival holidays and heavy rains. And the Chennai Corporation had accommodated 2,888 persons in 55 relief centers, while 10,073 persons had been housed in 185 centers in other parts of the state. The Greater Chennai Corporation had distributed over 33 lakh food packets so far. 64 cattle deaths had been recorded. 500 huts were partially damaged and 34 were fully damaged. 129 houses were partially damaged and 4 were fully damaged. 68,652 hectares of agricultural crops and 4 hectares of horticultural crop had been submerged across the state. And talking about COVID now, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 111 crore landmark milestone. Cumulatively, 111 crore 35 lakh 3,584 beneficiaries were inoculated so far. More than 52 lakh 99,000 vaccine doses have been administered till 7 p.m. on Friday, out of which over 15 lakh 22,000 people were given the first dose and over 37 lakh 77,000 were given the second dose on Friday. Well, on to some international stories now. Let's take a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the globe. COVID-19 has infected more than 25 crore 31 lakh people worldwide, and so far the number of recoveries stand above 22 crore 89 lakh, while the disease has claimed over 51 lakh 3,000 lives globally. The United States alone continues to contribute majority of the cases of COVID-19 in the world's tally. The country's COVID-19 cases have crossed 4 crore 78 lakh and death toll passing 7 lakh and 82,000. France is at the beginning of a fifth wave of the coronavirus pandemic. French health minister said several neighboring countries are already in a fifth wave of COVID-19 pandemic. What we are experiencing in France clearly looks like the beginning of a fifth wave. He added that the circulation of the virus was accelerating. The health ministry registered 11,883 new cases on Wednesday, the second day in a row with a new case tally over 10,000. New cases have seen double-digit percentage increases week on week since around mid-October. There's a warning that COVID-19 infection rates are climbing again in the country. French President Emmanuel Macron said earlier this week that those aged 65 and above in the country will need to show proof of a COVID-19 booster jab to be able to visit restaurants, attend cultural events and take intercity trains. Macron also urged the 6 million people eligible for the vaccine in France who have not yet even received the first dose to come forward and get the jab. Russia on Friday reported 1,235 coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours, close to a record one-day toll recorded earlier this week amid a nationwide surge in cases. A total of 2,52,926 people died of COVID in Russia during the pandemic so far. Russia has been experiencing a sharp increase in the number of daily infections from mid-September to the end of October. Since the beginning of November, new daily infection cases stopped around 40,000. While in Germany, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases increased by 48,640 a day after the country saw more than 50,000 new cases in a single day for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. Germany has already had to relocate some patients from regions with overburdened hospitals. The three German parties in talks to form a coalition government by early December have agreed not to extend a nationwide state of emergency. Instead, they presented a draft law on Monday that would amend existing legislation to allow for measures such as compulsory face masks and social distancing in public spaces to continue to be enforced until March next year. German Health Minister announced earlier on Friday that free tests would be made available again for all citizens and that he would suggest to toughen the rules in public spaces. The Netherlands will return to a partial lockdown from today after the government ordered restaurants and shops to close early and bar spectators from major sporting events. Caretaker Prime Minister Mark Rutte said restrictions that the Dutch people had thought had ended for good were being reimposed for 3 weeks. Supermarkets and non-essential retailers will also close earlier and social distancing measures will be reimposed. Cafes and nightclubs will also have to close by 8 p.m. from today. The measures are meant to contain a surge in COVID-19 cases that is straining hospitals across the country. New infections topped 16,000 for the second day in a row on Friday, beating the previous record of just under 13,000 confirmed cases in a day set in December last year. The World Health Organization hopes to convene a meeting in about 3 weeks' time on guidelines for COVID-19 antiviral pills. Janet Dias, the WHO's top official for clinical care responses, said that a meeting of its guidelines development group would consider the question of COVID pills in a forthcoming meeting. Britain became the first country to approve one of the potentially game-changing pills earlier this month, and this is the first antiviral drug that people can take at home to treat COVID-19. Last week, Pfizer Inc. said its experimental antiviral pill to treat COVID-19 cut by 89% the chance of hospitalization or death for adults at risk of severe disease.
We, at this point, have not convened our guideline development group panel, which is the expert panel that helps us write the guidelines. So at this moment, we are processing the totality of the evidence, meaning taking in the trial data, doing a meta-analysis, and grading the data to present to the guideline development group that then will help us draft and write our guidelines. But we hope in about 3 weeks that we'll have a GDG meeting, because we're still need to carefully look at that evidence to write the guideline.
A Myanmar court has sentenced the American journalist Danny Fenster to 11 years imprisonment on charges of incitement and violations of immigration and unlawful association laws. Frontier Myanmar, where Danny Fenster worked as the managing editor, that the sentence was the harshest possible under law. Danny is the first Western journalist who has been sentenced to jail term by the military government of Myanmar. He was arrested on 24th May just before he was to board a flight to Malaysia. The military government had earlier detained 2 freelance journalists, and earlier this week additional charges of Sedition and Terrorism Act were slapped against Danny, which are punishable by a maximum jail term of 20 years. The US State Department had earlier called his detention as profoundly unjust, but no reaction has come from the US Embassy in Myanmar on this issue till the filing of this story. US President Joe Biden said on Friday he would appoint a coordinator next week to oversee spending under a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, a role similar to one he held under former President Barack Obama that earned him the nickname Sheriff Joe. Biden said he had called his cabinet members together to hammer home the need to ensure that the funding and $1.75 trillion in a separate social and climate measure still working its way through Congress were used wisely. Biden said he would sign the infrastructure measure on Monday at a bipartisan ceremony, potentially outside, and expressed confidence that it would improve U.S. competitiveness versus China and other countries while easing inflation that has spiked in recent months. Biden earlier this year named former long-term economic advisor Gene Sperling to oversee implementation of $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package and named Jeff Zients, a former Obama official, to head his administration's overall COVID-19 response. Meanwhile, Stephen Bannon, a longtime advisor to former US President Donald Trump, has been criminally charged for failing to comply with the subpoena issued by a House of Representatives committee investigating the January 6 attack on the Capitol, as per the U.S. Justice Department on Friday. Bannon has refused to comply with subpoenas seeking documents, and his testimony, citing Trump's insistence already rejected by one judge that his communications were protected by the legal doctrine of executive privilege. Bannon was charged with one count of contempt of Congress involving his refusal to appear for a deposition, and another involving his refusal to produce the documents. Libyan Prime Minister Abdulhamid Al-Debeba said on Friday that he would hand over power if the electoral process takes place in a consensual and fair manner. He was speaking at a news conference after a summit in Paris on Libya. The Prime Minister said he had emphasized urgent changes during the meeting to the electoral rules that rival Libyan political bodies are tussling over. World powers will push for sanctions against anyone who disrupts Libya's electoral process and political transition, they said in Paris on Friday, though big disputes remain over how to stage a vote intended to help end a decade of conflict. The meeting, which included the leaders of France, Libya, Germany, Italy and Egypt, as well as the U.S. Vice President, was to cement backing for the planned December 24th election in efforts to remove foreign forces. Brazilian paleontologists are piecing together skeletons that could shed light on a new dinosaur species. Work at what could be a dinosaur graveyard started in June after a fossil was found during the construction of a railway in Maranhão in northeastern Brazil. Paleontologist Elva Myers and his team found the remains of what they believe to be a Titanosauria group of dinosaurs. Myers told Reuters the recent discoveries could provide fundamental new vital information on the life of dinosaurs that once roamed Brazil. Tuvalu's Finance Minister Sive Panu, head of island's nation's delegation, said that he is prepared to go the last stretch to reach a fair and just agreement at the COP26 in Glasgow. He said he was up last night negotiating the loss and damage text. He remains optimistic a landing zone can be reached, but his team is working to push the US and Australia to support a standalone loss and damage fund. The first call to address loss and damage caused by climate change came in 1991, when small island nations first pushed to create a mechanism to compensate vulnerable countries for destructions caused by climate impacts such as rising sea levels and supercharged wildfires. Rich nations resisted acknowledging financial liability for the years of emissions that drove climate change as they rose to economic prosperity. The minister said he came to Glasgow with high hopes, but that the draft agreement drawn up on Friday fell short of expectations.
Just remember that whatever comes out of Glasgow, Tuvalu will still be sinking, regardless of what the effort is achieved here in Glasgow. So there are people, lives and livelihoods being affected as we speak. So to know that we need to raise a level of ambition in all the thematic areas of the Paris Agreement so that we can contribute to protecting the livelihoods of people that are currently suffering and affected because of sea level rise and climate change.
Well, on to some business news now. Taking an update on the US stocks, the Wall Street stocks closed higher on Friday with market-leading growth shares kick-starting indexes climb as investors look past disappointing US economic data. Despite the advance, all three major US stock indexes ended the session below last Friday's close, ending a 5-week streak of weekly advances. The S&P 500 gained 0.72%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.49%. Shares of Johnson & Johnson gained after it announced splitting into two companies, dividing its consumer healthcare segments from its pharmaceuticals medical devices business. Meanwhile, Turkey's lira weakened to an all-time low of 10 against the US dollar on Friday, breaching the key psychological threshold on investor worries about monetary policy after the central bank began cutting interest rates in September. The lira has weakened by more than a quarter so far this year. It is the worst performer in emerging markets again this year. The latest lira slide was triggered by higher than expected US inflation data on Wednesday, which boosted the dollar due to possible earlier Federal Reserve policy tightening. Rising US rates tend to pull funds from emerging economies with high foreign debt like that of Turkey. Governor has said curbing the current account deficit is key to price stability and boosting the weak lira, forecasting that the balance of payments will improve in the rest of 2021. And Johnson & Johnson plans to spin off its consumer health division that sells Listerine and baby powder to focus on pharmaceuticals and medical devices in the biggest shakeup in the US company's 135-year history. The move by the world's largest health products company follows similar announcements by conglomerates Toshiba, General Electric as well as J&J rivals, and underscores how big diversified corporations are under pressure to simplify their structures to increase focus. Echoing J&J Chief Executive Alex Goxey's comments that the company had evolved into different businesses, Chief Financial Officer said rival public consumer companies tend to be valued more richly by investors than the Johnson & Johnson consumer unit. The higher growth outlook comes despite disappointing sales of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine following a string of production setbacks and fierce competition from rivals Pfizer Inc. and Moderna.
Heading into the pandemic, we believe we've emerged stronger from the pandemic in our medical device unit, and our pharmaceutical unit has grown well above the market for almost a decade now.
Sports news now. In the Football World Cup qualifiers played at Wembley Stadium on Friday, England's team registered a blistering 5-0 win over Albania team. Harry Kane played an important role in this victory, who scored a hat-trick of goals. Harry Kane scored a hat-trick in extra time in the 18th, 33rd and first half of the game. Apart from Kane, Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson also scored a goal each. With this win, England are very close to qualifying for next year's Football World Cup in Qatar. England now need just 1 point to qualify for the World Cup. And in the Football World Cup qualifying match, the team of Copa America champion Argentina has registered its third consecutive win. The team defeated Uruguay team 1-0 in the match played on Friday. Angel Di Maria scored the only goal in the match. After this, Argentina's team is only present in the second place in the group, and the team's hopes of qualifying the World Cup have become even stronger. Lionel Messi also returned in this match, although he only took to the field in the last 15 minutes. It is worth noting that due to hamstring injury, Messi could not even appear in some matches for his club, PSG. Argentina's team is now their next match will play against Brazil on Tuesday. It is worth noting that the top 4 teams from each group will qualify for the Football World Cup to be held in Qatar. Back home, an idol of Ma Annapurna that was stolen from Varanasi about 100 years ago and later found in Canada recently was handed over to the Uttar Pradesh government. The idol is now making its way back to Varanasi. The idol will be installed at the Kashi Vishwanath temple on Monday.
Ma Annapurna Devi's idol making its way home to the Kashi Vishwanath temple in Varanasi. A grand procession passed through the Hanuman Chowk in Hathras. The idol reached Aligarh late on Thursday evening. It was officially handed over to the Uttar Pradesh government on Thursday. The idol will be taken from Aligarh to Kannauj on November 12th and reach Ayodhya on November 14th. Finally, it will reach Varanasi on the 15th, where it will be placed at the Kashi Vishwanath temple after appropriate rituals. Down south on Thursday, priests in Kerala's Padmanabha Swami temple took the idols of Lord Padmanabha Swami, Lord Narsimha and Lord Krishna from the royal palace of Travancore to the Arabian Sea at Shanmugam beach in a colourful procession.
This procession is done twice a year, and the procession is meant for bhaktas who cannot go to the temples. And also it is not only for man but also for the trees and other animals also.
The traditional Arattu procession marked the end of a 10-day festival that began from the temple and continued till the royal palace of King of Travancore, Martand, near Shanmugam beach. Local residents and tourists gathered to watch the decorated temple and colourful festivities that are part of the procession.
I have heard about it a lot from my in-laws, and this is Alpeshri festival, and I heard that it is done twice a year. So as you can see, it is beautifully decorated and people are eagerly waiting to see it.
Sri Padmanabha Swami temple is one of the richest temples in the world. It is a tradition for the devotees to parade the gods across the city twice a year, literally taking them to the people. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this news bulletin. You stay tuned for more news and updates. Namaskar.